Really briefly, I think I'm on a journey from sunflower to wallflower as I go on through life. I was, you remember how I looked then, I was the sort of 28-year-old manager of a creative agency, and I was probably the only strategist in London with a Mohican. And when, like, clients took an extraordinary risk, but they were sort of looking for the mad, creative, brave stuff. And having said which, what we did really stood out for me and stayed with me across the years. So I'll talk about that a bit. Better. Well, I think the thing that we're trying to do with that company is, when people ask what it was like, I just described it as free-range work. When I started work in the ad industry, I thought it would be really fun and creative and interesting, and it was some of those things, but it also made me sick. I had a really bullying boss who used to be an army boxer and bore down on me the whole time, and I ended up getting shingles at the age of 22, and my doctor sort of looked at me over glasses like this and said, "What have you been doing with your life, young man? Why are you so stressed? You shouldn't have this disease until you're in your 80s. And so I joined another company. I just decided to change job. I couldn't deal with making that place better. And then when I got a chance to start my own company, we were talking around what we wanted to do. We really wanted to create something that was free range, where you could actually be yourself, be a bit more yourself at work than you were other places, enjoy it and not be constrained by it. And that's my sort of feeling for this. And we were then one of the first places, we were literally free range, we were one of the first places in the world to have hot desking, as it's called now, and we just had an office because it seemed like we didn't want to tether people to particular desks, or we just let them roam a bit and stuff. And so I'm writing a new book about that, and I've written a lot of books about things in between, like sustainability, and they're all about making business a bit more human in a way. Comes down to it. What we did together, I've been, because I help clients think about, I don't know, psychology, consumers as they call them and so forth, and the real problem with that is they never think about people, and they can even go and sit behind a two-way mirror and watch me interview someone, and they don't think of them as people, they think of them as a type of person. The average person, they might see a French person, they think of them as French, and it's sort of this composite of, garlic eating, a bit like Asterix, etc. They just think in stereotypes, and that's actually poison to what they're trying to do, which is to try and create something. And so always the task somehow is to break out of that. The workshop we did, and it's still, I think there were troubling aspects of it that still haunt me, which I think are really interesting as well. But what Claire got us to do was we had an office, quite scruffy, normal-looking place near Euston Station, and she got us to walk into the station and simply observe and find someone, literally find a character. I found somebody who was rushing, I think, on the way to a train. I think it was going to the north, and they had a sort of awkward suitcase that seemed to be sort of part of their personality and other stuff. And just watch them and pick something up and then come back. And she didn't really tell us what the task was, and we came back. And probably most of you have done exercises like this with her. We had to walk in a circle and increasingly inhabit that person. So I was wheeling a suitcase, even though I didn't have one there, and so forth. And then she just stopped and said, "Okay, now tell the room about yourself." And you talk about magic, it's a kind of sympathetic magic. I've had this a little bit when I'm writing fiction. You literally inhabit this other person, and you're completely them. And you might be, I guess I'm on most days reasonably extrovert, not so much on Mondays, but my character was probably much more introverted. They seemed quite closed into themselves and quite stressed. And I felt quite stressed, and I could feel, and you could ask questions, and I could answer how they would reply, which has always been my little thing about research, is actually you carry a little bit of that person with you. It's a sort of animism or something like that, and then you know how they would respond to an idea or what they want and what they don't like. The thing is, when you bring more truth into a discussion, the truth is that booze, as the Quran says, it has some benefits, but on balance it creates a lot of problems. And that came into the room as well, which is not something I can tell you, even at the Christmas dinner we ever would have discussed. But it was just, I didn't know this. I'd gone through, as quite a cocky young man, quite a long time, not knowing that if you simply put yourself into a different role, you have that potential. I could be that person with a broken suitcase in a hurry that was a bit like Basil Fawlty, I guess, or something like that. They're very stressed and a bit like my dad, and all these like composite things. But I could be that person, and I could stand here and be Donald Trump. I'm not suggesting that's a good idea, but the fact that that so much of what we are is a habit and a role, and actually posture, just the way you hold yourself, was extraordinary. And I've watched companies spend millions on market research and never got that kind of insight. So that always stayed with me. But I think I just have a great feeling for this. I think, do you do teenagers in your workshops?
She does.
She does. Good. So I'll introduce you to my son, because he's. You always have kids that are different to you. He's definitely a wallflower. Him and his friend used to sit through primary school discussing how they knew every answer but would never put their hands up. And I pushed him. We'd had dinner with a whole load of friends and people he didn't know, and I pushed him forward because he'd been learning magic tricks. And I said, "Go on, show them a few magic tricks." And he was brilliant. He was, as like all fathers are proud, but he was actually really good. People would say, "God, those are real tricks," and you can't actually see how he did it and things. But the thing that really affected me deeply was just how much I saw him shaking just before he started, and I realised I'd asked him to do something that I probably thought he would find quite easy, that he found so difficult, and it just seemed to take so much courage. And that's more, I think that the ethical work that you do, the sort of giving him the gift, he just found cards through a friend, but giving people doorways so that they can just expand who they are and not be quite stricken when they have to stand up in front of people. That feels like I've done a lot. I am writing a book, but I wouldn't go on about it tonight. I'm going to look forward to reading this one.